Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Welcome, everyone, to Global Trade This Week. I'm excited to welcome you in again to the only television show that you'll find on the internet that is a forward-looking experience about global trade, logistics, and economics, which clearly means it's the best. We have no competition, Doug. That's why we're the best you can find online these days. With me, as always, is my partner and my friend, Doug the Velvet Hammer Draper. I see that you've brought your friend back again this week. So I guess he made the final cut. Did you get any messages about what's his name again?
Troy. Yep.
Troy. Were there any messages about Troy this week?
No, I'm a little disappointed. I thought there'd be some fodder. That means we got to turn our game up a little bit, Pete. We need to create some urgency and some outrage with our comments, I think, is the best way to do that.
Yeah, or maybe there'll be one of those what do you call it? Welfare checks to make sure you haven't lost your mind, that you're hanging. In any case, I love him. I think he's fantastic. Thanks. I may have to recreate one and put it in my office as well. But I know that we're live again this week. I think last week went very well. I got a lot of great comments of people who appreciated us working without a net. It takes some balls, Doug, to work without a net.
Pete, I was going to say it's ballsy. You can always say timeout, that didn't come out right, but you can't do that in a live show.
No, you can't. So bless the people at Cap Logistics for trusting us. I think they put it in good hands, and let's see if we can give another good show. So with that, Doug, you've got some great topics this week. You always do, but you've got some particularly fantastic topics this week. So with that, why don't you hit us with topic number one, and let's light this candle. What do you got for us, pal?
All right. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of the story I did last week related to port congestion. Right. I'm going to do a quick, recap. The story from port to final destination in the U.S. is the points I wanted to cover last week. And I did an okay job, but I think there were some things I missed on that. And then this week, I'm going to talk a little bit about the factory to the port, right? Assuming LA, as an example, is kind of the starting point. So really, to recap from last week, all the connectors that happens when the freight gets off the boat and moved on a rail to the rail yard at the port, the drayage companies, the rail industry, the local warehouse, the final mile warehouse, the final delivery. We're just at the beginning of the challenge of all those touch points, right? Everybody's chirping about the port. Oh my God, there's 35 vessels or whatever the number is today off of the coast waiting. All that shit's got to go somewhere, and it's in a network that isn't designed to handle that volume. So what's going to happen in a week? It's going to talk about the congestion in LA, and then it's going to talk about the congestion on the roads and the rail, and then the final mile delivery, and it's just going to continue until it gets to the end consumer. So that was last week, right? We're just at the beginning of this, everybody. The situation at the factory in China, I think is pronounced as well. Really, there's a couple things. One, it all focuses around access to boxes, right? And ocean and the actual ocean container itself. There's a cycle. People have analyzed it. They know exactly how many days in the turn it needs to be for profitability and keep the world moving. And that's been upset. The apple cart has been upset to nobody's end, right? So there's no equipment that's repositioned over there. So I've been hearing from folks like the factory's doing the best they can, but there's nowhere to put it. It's the opposite situation, is that the warehouses that are loading don't want the freight because there's no boxes to load it in. The steamship lines are rolling containers like left and right because the bookings were all out of whack. And even if the factory can produce the goods, they still have to deal with their sub-suppliers. I think a lot of people, we have educated guests or listeners here, Pete, and guests. They probably get that if you're making a garment, some of those materials will be sourced from a subcontractor for the factory to make. And those subcontractors are dealing with COVID, financial shortages, and the same problems everybody else is having. How do you get it to where the subcontractor is making it to the factory, to the outbound warehouse, and so on and so forth? So I think I mentioned last week that this thing's going to roll through 2021. We're not going to see any relief till 2022. And that's the perspective from the factory to the port in LA. So in my opinion, it's all about container access, and you can't just make containers at the snap of a finger. So anyway, Pete, international trade's your bailiwick, my friend. So how crazy am I? Is there any truth to what I just said?
I think there is. And I don't remember a time when people weren't complaining about either not being able to find containers or not being able to find chassis. It's always been a never-ending problem. It's always been something that people have had an issue with, to the point where if there wasn't a slot on a ship, there wasn't a container. If there wasn't a container, there wasn't a chassis. It's almost like one of those puzzles you would make, where you have to move things around in order to get it working, and it gets harder and harder as time goes on. And now you have the added benefit of the fact that there's not enough ships. So we've added a fourth thing to it, you know? Actually, we've got 5 or 6 because there's not enough drivers. And on top of all that, you have the pandemic going along with it. So they're trying to make the game harder and harder, aren't they, as it goes along? I don't know how to make it better. With all this technology that we're implementing on top of it, you think it would be easier. You would think that with the visibility of all the different pieces of technology that the carriers and the trucking companies and these importers and exporters are using, that we'd have so much more visibility to equipment. But it's still the same thing with demurrage and people not being able to get stuff off the ships and unloaded and back to where it needs to be in time. This just seems like a never-ending problem. I don't know how you fix it. If we haven't gotten to a way to manage it by now, with the leaps that people have taken with supply chain management, what's it going to take, man? What's it going to take to make this better?
Yeah, I don't know. The visibility is a great point. The thing with that is that there's still connectors, right? You may be an LTL company or a freight forwarder and have the most awesome technology that somebody in a boardroom checks off on and says, we're going to pay $50 million to roll this thing out. But if it doesn't connect to anything else, you're still, that's the connector piece of it. It's only as good as it can connect. And I think we spoke at some other shows, is that connecting means you have to give up control and you have to share data. And that is still a tough thing for people to grip with. So there's cool stuff, but you got to connect this to that, to this, to that. And people are hesitant.
And, I forget the first person who told this to me, but it's such a great line. The international transportation business is so diverse and so disjointed. The only two they could think of that were more disjointed was lawn care and babysitting. As far as people who sort of, it's everywhere and it isn't really controlled. There are ways that you could, but there's just too many things to gain by both consumers and people who do it by doing it themselves. And it's funny, ha 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 ha, it's funny, but it's also true. You and I both know people that are operating successful. That's the key word, successful logistics firms, whether it's 2 people in a truck or a customs house broker who's literally 1 person. And I know I can name one right now off the top of my head who works out of her home, who probably operates $1 million business. And it's 1 person who is really living off of 7 or 8 excellent clients and 10 or 11 middle of the road clients and 20 small clients, who hasn't sold a damn thing because she inherited it from her dad. And nothing is changing. Technology is not changing. How do they plug in to the tech that we're talking about? How do they get plugged into the things you're talking about? They don't. And they probably, I don't know how they ever will. So you could have the best visibility software on the planet. They're not going to be taking part in this great hive mind that we need to fix the problem. And I don't know how you get them to do it. It's not in their interest, man.
Agreed. All right. Well, that's one we could go on. Babysitters and lawn care, there's not a better transition to your first topic, Pete. So let's roll with it.
Yeah. My first topic this week, I got, nothing makes me angrier than young people and fit people other than young fit people. And I was on a WebEx where I had to listen to yet another technology firm who was trying to get me to work with them. Why is it always these .coms that want me to work with them that have no money? They just want me to come and give them advice and they're not even offering me equity. They're just like, hey, can you come and help us out with this and teach us about something? Maybe there'll be something for you down the road. Man, baby ain't paying my my alimony, bro. So, but in any case, they're talking about blockchain and how blockchain this and blockchain that, and I really don't know if I believe in blockchain anymore, Doug. I think I believe in blockchain like I believe in the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and a unified Congress. I know it's possible, but I don't know if I really believe in it. Like I need to believe in it in order for it to be a reality in this business. I've seen blockchain in action. I've actually seen it in a small scale. I've gotten to see how it was applied in a real world example in our business. But I've also been fortunate enough to see a lot of news reports and to work with people who have been engaged in the Sycamore project, to be involved with Google and what they've been doing, and to look at the beauty that is quantum computing. These big, beautiful machines that work in an environment colder than space, that are finishing functions that would take the fastest computers that we currently have 10,000 years to do, and could break a blockchain like an eggshell in a positively ridiculous amount of time, you know, in a millionth of a billionth of a millionth of a second when they're up and running. The types of computers that will bring down governments someday with AI and machine learning. And if you expect me to believe that blockchain is going to live up to this, you're ridiculous. So here we are investing all this money into blockchain when blockchain is going to be worthless when quantum computers rise. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's when we'll all be living in holes eating rats when Skynet finally rises and the Terminators come for us. But then people will tell me, we'll just have quantum blockchains. Okay, well, fine. That's like when they brought in the skunks to eat the rats, and then the porcupines to eat the skunks, and then the mountain lions to eat the porcupines, and now here's where we are. So I just don't know if I believe that blockchain is going to end up being this viable thing, or if it's going to end up being like the Y2K issue, and we just really don't end up having a problem after all, Doug. So maybe it has applicability in some places. I just don't think it has the applicability we thought we did in supply chain.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I may differ with you a little bit. You know, I mean, I would say that blockchain, it's a little bit like, and I don't want to bring this up because I know you ruffles your feathers, but it's a little bit like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? People think it's cool and they kind of get it, but they kind of don't. But there is real application. I think there's good application for blockchain, especially in the food supply chain. You know, I think being able to figure out if I ate some strawberries, and it made me sick, and I can figure out through blockchain what farm that came from, and the FDA can help identify that and quickly, fix and address, serious problems that can impact people. I think that there's the ability for that. I just don't know how fast can quantum computing come to fruition that it can blow up a blockchain, in the security piece of it. So, blockchain's coming along, and I think there's some application there. But quantum computing next year, it's not going to be around next year to blow it up. So I think in the interim, whatever that may be, I'm a believer in blockchain. It's going to be larger companies that can really have control over their supply chain and mandate some of these changes. But I think the food supply chain is a real low-hanging fruit, no pun intended. Actually, it kind of is a pun intended, but I think that would be my take on it.
Well, I think blockchain computing is pretty much here. I'm sure that Elon Musk is building it in his basement between his free time of trying to come up with other silly names for his children. With regards to Bitcoin, it drives me nuts simply because I agree with the purpose of an unbordered currency. That I think is pretty cool. Just the idea that the security behind it, I think it's going to be crushed. Another problem with having this unregulated, very diverse industry like babysitting and lawn care, we don't have standards, man. There's no real standard to this industry. There's no standard documentation, no standard process, no standard flow. So how do you come up with a standard blockchain where documents and processes are going to go through it if every company claims that the way that we do it is some sort of IP? It's proprietary how insert large logistics company A does it versus large logistics company B. Well, then how do we apply those to a blockchain? That's a real issue on how to make it work. But you're absolutely right when you say that an industry like food or beverages, that is certainly a place where this has massive applicability. Man, vaccines, we can't seem to go a single one of these episodes without talking about coronavirus, but even vaccines, that's another place where this would be really applicable. Right. So that's 2 down. We got 2 to go. And this is the second half, and you deferred. So actually, no, you get the ball. So go ahead, Doug, and hit us with number 3.
All right. Well, before I jump into that, I got to tell you, this weekend I saw a promo about this gangster movie, right? So it was sweet. It's about these families from all over the country, right? They get together and twice a year, okay, these families are from all over the world. They have these leaders that are strong and powerful. They get together twice a year. They don't tell anybody where they're meeting. They don't tell anybody what they're going to talk about. And they don't tell anybody at what time they're going to do it. So they're going to get together and they're going to bring in some specially selected speakers and folks to tell them about the industry, and the family's going to get together and they're going to make the right decisions to make sure the family maintains and to make sure the family succeed. What do you think about that? Oh, wait, Pete, I'm sorry. It's not a gangster movie. It's called The Box Club. And that's exactly the premise to what's going on with the ocean container liners, right? I mean, and it's crazy. I mean, what I just described could be a gangster movie, or it could be the realities of how ocean freight is managed across the world. It is unbelievable. In doing a little bit of research on this topic, back in 2017, they had the meeting in San Francisco, and the feds came in and literally broke up the meeting like the police would in a gangster movie. And they issued subpoenas and all this other kind of stuff, and yay for the government. And then 2 years later, mysteriously, all of the subpoenas were dropped, right? And so if I was the steamship line, here's my point, right? So if what's going to happen is you're going to get investigated, you're going to get some fines every once in a while because there's precedent for that. And so I'm a steamship line and I get a $200 million fine. Well, in the time that I colluded and had price fixing for 4 years in advance, and I generated $400 million of additional revenue in exchange for a $200 million penalty, people would take that all day long, right? So I'm being a little dramatic, Pete, on this one, but I think my point is that that's the way the world is right now. And as ocean freight and the things that we spoke about and all the connectors and the massive explosion of our supply chain challenges continue to grow, the focus is going to be on let's get the economy back up and running. And the collusion and the price fixing, and I know I'm being dramatic, is going to continue. And we're not going to see prices going down anytime soon. And what are we going to do about it?
Nothing.
I don't know. Nothing, exactly. So there you go. Gangster movie or the way the ocean freight industry is run. I can't see a difference.
Yeah, every good gangster knows if you want your family to survive, you got to legitimize the business, baby. And I can't think of a better way to legitimize the business than to get into international shipping, because apparently you can just print money and there's nothing anybody can do about it. What are you going to do about it? If you run this thing right, a couple of decades before the world really needs you again, you're going to bleed out most of your competition until there's only a couple of carriers left. And then once that's done, you will legitimately, without any government being able to put pressure on you, take all of your inventory off the water, raise all of your prices, and find that point we talked about on the glass of water where there's just enough water where you can't put another drop in there, and then raise your prices through the roof, make all of your money back. And what are they going to do about it? You could legitimately right now, say to the United States, we're turning off ocean freight to you. No more containers, none. We'll choke you out. We'll wait you out until no more comes in. Now it would be stupid. We're a massive consumer of that, but what are we going to do about it? The United States has no merchant marine. And trust me, this is a topic I know a great deal about I went to a Merchant Marine Academy and graduated when there were no ships to sail on. I am a member of a board of the National Defense Transportation Association. I am deeply involved in this topic. We have no ships. So what are we going to do about it if we get into it with somebody? We have nothing to do about it. These guys live in a vacuum where they make all these decisions. And you can call it whatever you want. But in my personal opinion, as a guy who studies this deeply, you can call whatever you want. Collusion, you can talk about it like they're a cartel. But if you're able to determine the inventory, the global available inventory, the global available price, and then withhold both inventory and availability of use without any possible ramifications from global governments, that's pretty gangster.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty gangster. So yeah, I don't know what else to call it, Doug.
Yeah. Well, I could see. I was about to say, I don't know if there was an earthquake going on in New Hampshire, or your passion and excitement about this topic was jolting your computer, or the wine bottles in the back. But I would say anybody that has more questions on this one, go talk to Pete, because it's crazy. It's crazy. So anyway, let's roll on to you need a minute. You need a minute to calm down. I didn't mean to ruffle the feathers. So all right, man, you're up for number 4. We're in the 4th quarter. What do we got?
Every year around Christmas time, I get fired up for videos from this guy who comes up with these boxes that he creates. I don't know if you've seen him, Doug. I should send you the video. But he had a package from Amazon stolen off of his front porch. And whoever it was that stole this package, they came back a second time a week later and stole one. And they stole a package from the wrong guy. So he was an engineer. And he engineered a package that when you stole it, it exploded glitter. And he had a cell phone that turned on and sent video back to him of the exploding glitter going off. And glitter, if you get glitter in your house, you never get rid of it. It's there forever. Mm-hmm. It was a huge hit on YouTube. Well, not to be outdone, year after year now, for I think 6 or 7 years, these boxes have become more and more outrageous. So this year, when the boxes were opened up, he made it so you couldn't put the box top back down on it. It shot out skunk spray. It did. It sent out a huge audible radio blaring. It was just incredible. It had 4 cell phones on it, so that it recorded from every angle. It made it sound like a call was being made to a police station with the exact address. And then when these people threw the box away, it gave the GPS of where the phones were, so you could go back and get it. He had a recharging pad on the mat of where the Amazon box was, so it always kept it charged. So when they grabbed it and ran with it, it was recording from the time that they picked it up until they brought it back. It was always audio recording. This guy, I loved it. I loved it because I'm sick. I loved it. But it's part of a big problem that we have, which is porch pirates and the theft of online retail. So I was looking at statistics. Half of Americans say that they have had a package stolen from either their home or their apartment or the front entryway of their apartment building. And roughly 73% of American businesses have said that they've had a package stolen from their place of business. You would think that if half of Americans have said something has been stolen, they would have done something about it. That's a pretty big number. But if you begin to dig deeper into the articles that have been written about this, they see this as the cost of doing business. The cost of the ease of being able to buy something on the internet is win some, you lose some. And if you have something stolen off of have you ever had something stolen, Doug? Because I have. And when I call people and say, someone stole my crap, the response I get is, what do you want me to do about it? UPS dropped it off, FedEx dropped it off, USPS dropped it off. It was your job, Tubby, to go downstairs and get it before someone came and stole it and sold it on eBay or wherever they sold it. It's not our problem. Better luck next time. there seems to be a real problem here in need of a solution. And I don't know what that solution is, but I have a feeling it's going to end up being some sort of tracking device, passive, inexpensive tracking device, or people not being able to just let it sit there anymore and requiring signatures like the good old days. But this is a real problem in need of a solution. I just don't know what that solution is.
Yeah. Well, two thoughts on that. One, I want to know if that engineer is unemployed, because the detail that he goes into, get retaliation against porch pirates is pretty impressive. That's more than just a couple hours of noodling around on a Sunday. So send those over. Send them out. We'll put that on the on the link. But anyway, so my take is twofold. One is I think we've seen some potential solutions that really haven't done that well. I know that Amazon invested a lot of assets into the lockers, right? And I used to see a bunch of those at convenience stores. You still see them. You see them a little bit. That's fixed money. It's something you have to purchase. And when you stick it out there, if you put a locker system to the general public, you're going to have to repair it. It's going to get damaged. I don't think that's a long-term solution. But two things I think that'll transpire. One is you're going to love this one. Going back to our second show, my friend, BOPIS. Buy online, pick up in store, right? That does require you to get in your car or walk and go pick it up. But if security is important and you have a $500 camera or cell phone, I think you're going to make the effort. So I think that type of final mile will continue to grow. And there's a lot of technologies I've seen where delivery drivers can have an app. You get this door lock and they can like enter your house or enter something secure through a code and put it in there in a box of some sort. Technology gets hacked. That's something that you've talked about time and again. Requires the ability for an honest person to use that technology. And people don't want strangers in their stuff, right? I mean, maybe things will change. You never thought strangers would get into other people's car for a ride, but that's come to fruition. But I don't know if I want to give somebody access to my house or a box on my porch to put my package in. So I would agree 100%. It's almost like the returns dilemma that we have. Like, what the heck is the solution? There'll be a lot of cool technologies that pop up. There'll be some startups that'll go and try to chase some money to fix the problem because there is a lot of money in it. But I don't know what that is. You're face to face in somebody's home, infringing on their privacy to try to secure a package so it doesn't get stolen. I don't know, man. I'm with you. I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Well, I've heard of the idea of theft insurance, but how do you find a way to monetize that in a realistic way? Because I've got a feeling people would do fake claims. And then I have a friend of mine a couple of years ago that he built a new house and he put in what he called his Amazon door, where there was a door before the door, which when I was a kid, I knew a lot of people that had, because it's so cold up here in the Northeast, there was a door before the front door. And it was a door that an Amazon driver could open up, drop off the packages, and someone casually walking down the street would not see packages on the front porch. They would just see another door in front of them. I think you're right, man. This is a problem that maybe technology can answer or somebody smarter, but it's a big one. And as long as there's an opportunity for theft, there's going to be people out there looking for a free ride. And there's a scumbag out there trying to get something for free. So it's a bigger problem than I can't imagine it's going to be an easy way to get their head around it. Yeah.
Well, Pete, before we go, big problems are things that you're dealing with very well, and I want to compliment you on sticking with your juice in your bubble up there in space. You were telling me earlier you've dropped a substantial amount of weight. I could tell in your face, so congratulations.
Thank you. 41 pounds in 3 weeks. Yeah. This is the working for your own company anxiety diet, along with doctor prescribed misery food. So 41 pounds in 3 weeks. We'll see if I can keep it up. Thank you very much. How is your mindfulness going? Are you still being mindful?
Pretty well. I am. It's going great.
I can't wait.
I'll just leave it at
well,
that.
Tomorrow morning, the podcast you and I did for TradeGeek goes up. So if anybody wants to hear a whole lot of insight about just who Doug Draper is and how he became the logistics juggernaut that you see before you, and learn about the guy in front of the modern art that joins me every week and keeps me on the straight and narrow on the TradeGeek podcast. That will be up tomorrow on all of your platforms. Thank you for sitting in on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for asking me. Yeah. You know what else is a lot of fun is 11 o'clock Mountain Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Mondays, Pete. That's when Global Trade This Week airs, and we are done with our second live show. I think it turned out all right. You know, we're rocking and rolling. And obviously none of this can be possible without our team from Cap Logistics. You can visit them at caplogistics.com. Phenomenal company with logistics and transportation, and a phenomenal group that puts this show on every week. So I want to thank those guys. But last thing is, Pete, put up that picture of the unemployed engineer. And then folks out there, if you have comments, commentary on what we spoke about today, please kick that off in our thoughts or in our posts. And we're always open to some topics as well. So I think with that, Pete, we'll call it a week. I want to thank you for joining, and thank our audience for joining us again this week for Global Trade This Week live. We did it.
Thanks, everybody.